What's going on, guys? It's your boy Anthony alongside the best Big 3 account in the universe, Big 3 News, aka Will, back with another edition of The Fourth Man. And we are 3 weeks in the books. Now, our first Vegas stint is now officially wrapped up, which is pretty crazy to think about. Just seeing that we just saw the schedule not too long ago. And we got a lot of surprises, a lot of competitive teams already so far, a few roster changes here that we're going to go over here with you today. And we're going to break down all the week 3 games as well. Great week that we had in our last week in Vegas in our first quarter here. But before we get into all that, my guy, Will, what's good, man? It's been a long 3 weeks.
It has been a long 3 weeks. Now listen, you talk about the competitive teams. This is the most competitive Big Three's ever been. This is the best the Big Three's ever been. I mean, if you just look at these standings. I mean, I'm just looking them right here for myself. I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams with 1 or less wins.
That's
out
wild.
of 12, 7 of them only have 1 or less wins. So it's just absolutely insane. I mean, there's going to be for sure, some sort of, middle of the pack that ends up coming out. There's going to be, a lot of these 2-1 teams are going to battle it out. And, so we're really going to see which of these 2-1 teams are going to end up, maybe with 2 or 3 losses on the year, or which ones are going to sort of end up around 500. But I mean, you just look at these teams, man. I mean, they're really like, what's the difference between you say Triplets, Trilogy, and Power, which has really been like the 3 top dogs right now. But for that 4th seed, man, it could really be anybody.
Anybody.
Like besides Bivouac.
Mm.
So it could really be anybody but Bivouac.
Ouch. Even aliens has a shot, you're saying?
Yes. Oh, 100% aliens have a shot.
No Bivouac, though. Okay.
No, Bivouac is done.
Hey, we'll talk about that game kind of towards the middle of the episode here. But Frank Nitty said it best. It's a lot more competitive this year. He said that before getting their first win, and he made sure he came out and did his thing, made it on SportsCenter's top 10, and got the dub. But we'll talk about all that before we jump into the show here. As always, if you want to find the socials, it's at Fourth Man Pod, at Big3 News, at @A_Siggy. If you want to watch the show, it's on YouTube, youtube.com/fourthmanpod. And if you want to listen on Dash Radio on the Nothing But Net channel every Saturday at 2 p.m., you can also listen to it over there. We appreciate anyone who's tuning in via Dash Radio. We appreciate you guys giving us a platform to talk about the Big 3. All right, let's jump into week 3 because a lot of exciting games. What I really love about this year is that they're kind of going on a week or 2-week basis and making the schedule that way. And essentially what they're doing is trying to make it as competitive as possible so that it's a good show week in and week out. They did that. There was a chance for teams to go 3-0. Some teams could have dropped to 2-1. Instead, we have, like you said, 7 teams that have at least 2 wins or more on the year. And what I also love about this new schedule is that they put the best games to start the day. Like the second game seems to be like the best game or game of the week.
Yeah.
But the first game is always like that intriguing one to for I would say like a new fan or someone who's more of a casual, kind of like pique their interest a little bit. Like, this is interesting. Okay. And they did that here with Ball Hogs and Power early on in the day. And, I think people that tune in are like, okay, we got Leandro Barbosa. Okay. Obviously the White Mamba, he's the one that's going to steal the show. Got Coutinho, obviously the people's champ, Royce White in the game. So
people's champ. Yeah.
You had 2-0 Ball Hogs, which is still weird to say even a week later. And you had 1-1 Power, who's coming off a tough loss to Triplets. This was a really competitive, tight game throughout. I think it wasn't until the end where Ball Hogs kind of let this one slip away. Power kind of capped the game off on a 10-4 run. But this one was tight throughout. Power had a lead throughout the first half until literally that last bucket going into the second half where Ball Hogs took the lead. I think we saw great games from Ball Hogs Big 3 of Barbosa, Jody Meeks, and Will McDonald, which, by the way, I think Jody Meeks and Leandro Barbosa could be the best tandem in the league.
Wow.
Arguably. They've showcased it through 3 weeks, so I'm just going to throw that out there. But ultimately, Power went on a 10-4 run to cap this one off, win it 51-46. They did, however, see Coutinho Mobley limp off in the final few minutes there when it was like I think, game point for Power. But what do you think of this game to start off the day? I mean, both these teams are now 2-1, and it's a little bit more competitive at the top.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great game, and I feel like, it's still tough to say anything about Power because, we haven't seen them at full strength, and it feels like we're getting closer to that.
We'll never see them in full strength
We
again.
probably will never see them at full strength, but at least, adding Dusan, which looks like it's going to happen this week, is going to be insane. And if Dusan plays like he has been in the Olympics, then it's going to be, he might be like, he could be what turns the tide against, a Triplets or a Joe Johnson. He could absolutely put you over the top.
Ooh.
Maybe that's a little crazy to say, but I don't know.
Tease, man.
But listen, but other than that, this looked like two pretty even teams, at least for the majority of the game. I think Power's experience and their coaching, I think, ended up being really what, drove them away. But, Barbosa's incredible. We'll talk about it, but Barbosa is absolutely he might be the pickup of the offseason, which was Leandro Barbosa of Ball Hogs, because he has just completely turned around that team. And I just feel like, there's a few guys in this league where you're like, if we need a bucket, we're going to them. And besides Joe Johnson, I don't know who else you can say that about besides Leandro Barbosa.
Man, they work in such different ways too. Like Joe is like, I can beat you from a lot of different spots. I'm going to do it tactfully and skillfully. Leandro's like, I'm just going to blow by you.
Yeah,
and I'm going to get a layup in somehow, whether it's it seems like a weird angle at every layup he's hitting. I agree. I think these teams were pretty evenly matched. It's so weird that Power it just seems like ever since last season, really, to start the year off, they just can't get that whole team tagged together outside of maybe that one game when they played Triplets. Well, not even that game because Birdman was out for that game. So it just seems like Power can never regain strength, but they just keep trucking along and doing their thing.
Ever since Glenn Davis got ejected.
Oh, yeah.
That might have been the last time they're fully healthy.
I don't even know if it was them because Corey Maggette was out to start the year. So, it seems like they just keep trucking along. Nancy Lieberman keeps doing her thing and plugging in pieces. Joe Alexander seems like a pretty good pickup too, by the way.
He seems like a guy great.
You can go to in a one-on-one, kind of create your own shot. But Coutinho walks off a little bit early there, so Power might be dropping another piece while adding another one. I mean, what do you do? Like, what do you think of Power if Coutinho is out, maybe for one, maybe multiple weeks, depending on how bad he's hurt? But they're plugging in Dusan, who we know he can do what he can do from a FIBA 3-on-3 standpoint, but we haven't seen him yet in the Big 3.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many question marks. I think they need Coutinho Mobley. Coutinho Mobley, in my opinion, is not someone that you can very easily replace. And especially with the way that they've been playing, like Royce White has been good. Joe Alexander, I question the pick, but Joe Alexander has been great for them, as like for the role that he's been playing. But Coutinho Mobley really has been the best player on this team. He's been their driving engine. So to lose him is going to be tough, but that all goes out the window if Dusan Bulut comes in and he is what he's been proclaimed to be. I mean, I think the New York Times had him as the Michael Jordan of 3v3 basketball.
Wow.
So,
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, he's been getting incredible press, global press coverage, because I think everyone's starting to figure out who this guy is. And an incredible time for the Big 3 to be picking him up. So if he can come in and, I think there's speculation because does the FIBA style, especially on the defensive end, does that match up well against the Fireball 3 style? Does that match up well against the Big 3 style? And if it does, then, they're not going to be missing Coutinho and they're not going to be missing anybody. But, if there is a little bit of a transitionary period, which is fair to expect, losing Coutinho is probably one of the worst thing that can happen for this team, especially as opposed to other years when you had a Birdman, a Glenn Davis, a Corey Maggette, and Coutinho could absolutely take more of a back seat. This year, they've been relying on him heavy.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. If you get 2 bring the fires, 1 each half, I'm only going to use it when Dusan gets fouled or shooting foul. So absolutely. I just want Dusan going to the basket every time and say, hey, we're bringing the fire. I don't care if it looked like a foul or not. And also, shout out to Darnell Jackson because he looked pretty good in his first game as well.
Yeah, he did. That was another great pickup by them.
That was a good pickup. But of course, what do we expect? I think if it's not Dermar, it's Nancy Lieberman or the team of Nancy Lieberman and Katina Mobley making highly efficient pickups. All right, let's move on to game 2, which was game of the week. Again, we have Triplets with a big target on their back, and they're going up against 2-0 Trilogy, who's looked really good early on. This seemed like a game of missed opportunities for Trilogy, really, and just didn't look like the same team that we've seen through the first 2 weeks. Obviously, there were the early fouls that Jared Jack committed. He had 3 fouls, and he had to sit in the first half. They put Briscoe in earlier, but I felt like Isaiah Briscoe went one-on-one a lot, took a lot of jump shots and settled, and he just wasn't hitting like he was in the first 2 weeks. And then I think the third thing that kind of hurt their momentum was I think Bring the Fire can really make or break your momentum at times when you use it. They bring the fire, Amir Johnson gets a stop, Trilogy gets the ball back, they turn it over, and Triplets still gets a bucket. And I think that ultimately just shifted it right back to Triplets if they had any kind of momentum. On the flip side, Trilogy, Joe's just being Joe. How do you stop that man? You really can't. You can only hope to contain him. And you can only hope to match what they're doing. I think they got good production from guys like Jamario Moon and Alan Anderson. On the flip side, Triplets ultimately win this one 51-44. Tough game. I think Trilogy still looks good, but like I said, they looked a little inefficient. What'd you see from Stack's team there?
Yeah, I mean, they looked like a team that it looked like the goal was like, we're gonna make them uncomfortable, we're gonna come out and punch him in the mouth. Mm-hmm. And then like some scene in like Dragon Ball Z, like Joe Johnson just like caught the punch, he just caught the fist in his air. He's like, you're not gonna do that today. So it was just, it was more just Joe Johnson being Joe Johnson. Like it was a good effort, but I just feel like
nice try, buddy.
Nice try, but I think that team as a team has been very intense, very physical. They definitely were missing some of the efficiency. I mean, they've been, I feel like, super hot the first 2 games. So it'd be interesting to see if maybe they come back down to earth a little bit. But, I just think this was a case of the better team winning. I still think Trilogy's a good team, though, and I still think they're unlocking that full potential, especially with a guy like Briscoe. But, at the end of the day, few men have succeeded against Joe Johnson.
So now we ask the question 3 games in, like Power couldn't knock him off. Trilogy couldn't knock him off. Those are probably our top tier teams right now, top 3 teams, either whichever way you want to spin it. I mean, does this team go 8-0 now? I mean, they got past almost the early gauntlet that they were facing. We thought Bivouac was going to give them a little bit of a rougher time. That didn't seem to be the case. Does this team just ultimately have an undefeated season and kind of match what Trilogy did year 1?
I don't think they go undefeated. I think the league is too good for them to go to undefeated. I mean,
it just doesn't seem like anybody.
If Royce White hits that open shot, they're 2-1.
Yeah.
I think a team like Ghost Ballers or a team like even like Ball Hogs might catch them one week, but listen, it could happen, but like you said, the Big 3 with the way they've been making the schedule, they've just been throwing like, it's been like, the next challenger come to face Joe Johnson. And
literally.
And what you've done is you've just basically just created a monster is what you have. Where it's just,
at this point, like you're just racking
everybody
up all the new characters at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you're just knocking off everybody.
He's soloing the entire league.
Exactly. I mean, it's just nuts. I mean, Big 3 just posted back this 3rd straight player of the week. I thought maybe Murphy might contend or who's the other guy? Jason Richardson might get a chance to win it this week, but nope. It is Joe Johnson once again. So,
yeah.
I mean, how do you not credit that man? Another win, another strong performance. Most points on the week for the maybe the 3rd straight week, I believe. If not 3rd straight week, 2nd straight week. Another top tier performance. We'll see if Triplets can be knocked off by somebody. They got another tough test, I believe, this week, as expected against the enemy's team, hoping to try to get back to 500. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's move on to the chippiest game of the afternoon this past week. It was Tri-State and Ghost Ballers. Ghost Ballers 2-0, Tri-State 1-1. Another team that had a chance to go 3-0 and weren't actually able to put it together, but I think for different reasons. Honestly, this is probably one of our sloppier games on the day. I just felt like there was a lot of misses, kind of like in between the middle of the first half and the beginning of the second half.
Yeah, that lasted forever. It seemed like.
It did. We had a couple ejections here. Ghost Ballers, they were very like animated when it came to the foul calls. They just did not like them. We saw texts thrown for Mike Taylor, a text thrown for Ricky Davis, just arguing. By the way, Mike Taylor's a mood. That's just the best way to put it. That dude is entertainment at its finest. This dude's rolling on the ground. This dude's dancing while they're waiting for the call. Just all around a fun guy. Jay Rich had a big game. He looks even better at 40 years old. It's like year of the 40-year-olds, it seems like. Ultimately, Larry Sanders got ejected on a flagrant 2 call when he pushed Mike Taylor in the air. On the flip side, Mike Taylor also got ejected because he got a second tech for argument, kind of being in the scuffle with things. I think Ghost Ballers lost a little momentum because Tri-State went on an 8-0 run to end it and move on to 2-1. Mike Taylor had a really good game before ejected. I mean, a lot of things happening throughout this game. So what did you take away from this that kind of stuck out to you where you think, hey, this is really going to bode well for this team or that team?
Yeah, I mean, this to me, honestly, I got to give credit to Tri-State because I think, after that scuffle sort of early in the second half, both teams sort of like had a chance to reset.
Mm-hmm.
And Ghost Ballers definitely lost their best player. But I feel like Tri-State was like, all right, like, we're reset, refocus now, like we're going to go in and win. So yeah. I think that credit to Tri-State because I think it takes a good team to do that. So maybe we wrote off Tri-State a little bit too early because this seems like a team that, Jason Richardson's been giving them a big boost, but it seems like Dr. J hasn't playing good. I like the rotation. They seem like they have a pretty cemented game plan. And then on the flip side with Ghost Ballers, I would just say, listen, I get that they're an emotional team. I get, they're highly entertaining to watch, but I just feel like that came to bite them in the butt a little bit on this game.
Yeah.
I think they lost the favor of the refs pretty early in the game, just with the way they were reacting and stuff. And, I know the crowd loved to see stuff like that, but I don't know. It just seemed a little bit too over the top for me.
Yeah, understandable because, you lost Mike, who was having a great game. I think he had 19 points.
Yeah.
And honestly, he was a big reason why they came back. I mean, they were down double digits at one point in this game. I think it was like 37-26 at one point. And he was a big reason that they were even keeping it close. And then he gets ejected. And it kind of just ended that spell for him, like you said. So, maybe contain your emotions a little bit. Also, too, which I think is weird is that Chris Johnson had such a great first game. I don't feel like they utilize him as much in the last 2 games. I don't know if it's probably not by design. It's probably just kind of the swing of the game. But I do think it's a little odd because we raved about him all off season. He had a great first game. The production slowed down a little bit, but maybe that's because Mike's been playing so well. I don't know. But
maybe you play week 2.
They played Enemies week 2, and he hit the game winner. He had a good end to that game. He had
that's Isaiah Austin and Larry Sanders.
Yeah, I mean
on the defensive end. So that's a tough assignment.
That's true. That is true. Larry Sanders, another guy that needs to maybe control his emotions just a little bit. We've seen him push 2 people and get flagrant he got a flagrant week 1. There was only a flagrant 1, flagrant 2 this week. Nonetheless, like what Tri-State's doing, I think if I'm not mistaken, I had them a little bit higher in my rankings because I was a little high on them. I like their draft picks, and I think Earl Clark, Tony Roden, those guys are kind of getting adjusted, acclimated to everything. My biggest thing that I noticed is like, is Nate going to be the same? Like, is Nate the same guy as last year? The reigning 4th man of the year. He looks like he's maybe not taking on as much of the load, or maybe it's because he hasn't had to. But we'll see moving forward. Nonetheless, 2-1 teams, and just to make it a little bit more interesting up at the standings. So you love to see it. Let's move on to game 4. Three's Company and Three-Headed Monsters probably are. While we had 2 great games to start today, this might have been one of the best games.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I think we saw 2 evenly matched teams. We saw a late run from a team that ultimately put them in a position to win. A hard-fought game. It was really tight throughout. I think Kevin Murphy has really shown that he was worth that number 7 pick, and maybe should have went a little bit
your boy
higher.
Bang Up 55, baby.
Hey, believe and never give up is all I got to say, because he certainly did that in this one. They were down 46-43 at the Monsters late in this one. It didn't seem like it was going to go their way. Jim Jackson actually made the point on the broadcast that he thought in this tight, kind of chippy, hard-fought game that three-headed monsters had the advantage because their style of the play. I just got to give hats off to him because he nailed it. They
They
certainly
were
came up
so
with that
funny
win.
on Saturday,
They were
especially after
great.
they switched over to Triller. Like, I don't know if they were tired, I don't know if what, but they were just like laughing hysterically, like the
Dude,
entire broadcast. Just and
maybe they
John
were just
Sally,
delirious.
they were a little. It seemed like they were a little delirious, but like they would just go to John Sally, and John Sally would just say something, and they'd all just get hysterical. Then they were like making fun of Rick Mahorn for like.
They just didn't give a care in the world. They're like, Triller lets us do whatever, I guess.
Yeah.
But, Crucial bring the fire down late between Rashard Lewis and Mario Chalmers.
Yeah.
Which put him in a position, or put him in the lead. It was 48-46, and then Murphy is the big game winner. But are we higher on three-headed monsters, or are we lower on Three's Company after this one?
This is a game that I would say, I mean, you look at the standings. This is a game that I'd say I think it was against two evenly matched teams. I think it could have went either way. If I'm being honest with you. So I don't know. I'm just not really too. I don't really know if I have an opinion one way or another. I just think I mean, you pose an excellent question. I mean, one team is 1-2, the other one is 2-1. I just feel like this game could have went either way.
It really could have. It's weird to me that I think three-headed monsters obviously made a great pick in Kevin Murphy, but I did, my concern with them was like they're a little bit older, and it does seem like, maybe they can't go to like Rashard or Mahmoud as much, or Reggie Evans is playing I guess taking a little bit more in his hands offensively.
Yeah.
So I just wonder, who's going to be kind of that second guy? Who's going to be that second scoring punch to take a little bit off Kevin Murphy? Because what if Murph has a bad game
right
one of these weeks, and you need somebody to step up, and nobody does. That's my only concern with them. On the flip side, for Three's Company, it's like Parga might be one of the best picks in the first round as well, because he's looked amazing, and I think it was just a matter of losing some of that momentum late. So honestly, like you said, could have gone either way. I thought it was a really good game nonetheless. It was just back and forth.
It was a good game.
It felt like it was never more than a 5-point differential. So
I think these are two teams that will probably end up very close in the standings.
Yeah, I think we could definitely see both these teams. I could definitely see both these teams sitting at like 4-4.
Yes.
And one is higher than the other.
Right, like one's 4-4, maybe one's like 3-5.
Definitely. So we'll see how that ends up. The next game was Aliens and Killer 3s, kind of a similar fashion in this one to the last game, just in terms of how it ended. Aliens had a big lead. Killer 3s said, fuck that. We're going to come back and win this one. It was
dude, 40... that dunk from Frank Nitti, he was like, we're not losing this game. We're not fucking losing this game.
So that was probably the highlight of the day, right? Is Frank Nitti's monster posterizer over Jason Maxiell. He was like, it's just so funny because Jason Maxiell, is getting his opportunity again. He's like, I'm back. And his first game back.
Hi, everybody.
And he's like, what's up, man? Bang! Just slamming on his head. That was just crazy sequence too. Like Charlo gets the block, goes Frank to Nitti, and he's just like, I'm taking this one. But
Charlo's been great too, by the way, especially on defense.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's arguably one of the best defenders right now that I've seen week in and week out since he's played.
If Killer 3s were, it would be more of a storyline if Killer 3s were better.
Mm-hmm.
But Charlo, I feel like Charlo's always getting like blocks and steals, and he's a great wing defender. I wonder if that's somebody who, it's the big three, so you don't have picks, but that to me is somebody who you want to talk about like a mid-season trade. Like if Triplets were like, we'll give you our first, like for like a Mo Charlo, like, you know what I mean? Or someone like that, like a Trilogy, or like,
Yeah, just like as it's kind of that defensive stopper. He's been able to, they don't do picks, right? They don't really do picks, but maybe a player or so, we've definitely seen player for player trades. Dude, he's been able to switch onto anything. He's been guarding some of the best offensive players, it seems like, making a lot of deflections, getting his hands in there. So I've really, shout out to Mo. He was really determined to make this league, and I think the 5 tournament really helped him to kind of showcase that to other guys in the league. But
TBT too, winning the TBT doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I get a little extra cash money, feel a little confidence going up there. But like I said, Aliens They blew a 47-40 lead. Kind of sucks because I feel like Aliens has been in every game, despite what we said about them early in the year. We both had them down in the rankings, but it's been a tough slate for them. It seems like they just continue to like just lose by just a little bit. Brandon Rush had a really good game in this one. Andre Owens looks like the Andre Owens that we're accustomed to. Just a great pivotal piece that you need, whether it's coming off the bench or starting. But on the flip side, Killer 3s gets their first win. They win 50-47. And they, by the way, they went on a Bring the Fire. Another game where Bring the Fire is a pivotal moment within the game. Dante Green with the game winner, who's having a great season, by the way.
That's got to be the first time someone's won on a Bring the Fire, right?
And actually made the basket. So like Royce White won.
Right. Yes.
But he was just fouled. So it was kind of anticlimactic, Yeah. But this one was pretty sick. He
this is like how it was designed.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is what we are going to put in the commercials, But like I said, highlight of the day, Nitty posterizing Jason Maxiell, make Sports Center top 10, which is pretty sick.
That was sick, yeah.
And if I'm Nitty, I'm getting every single angle framed from my house.
Oh my God, some of those pictures they took are insane.
Great pictures. I don't know who's the photographers, but they did a great job. So, final game of the day was a battle of a couple other 0-2 teams, Enemies and Bivouac. And close in the beginning, we saw another monster dunk from Josh Smith in this one, who, I would kind of consider that a posterizer on.
Oh, definitely. On Elijah Stewart, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. He went up for it, and he slammed it down on him. Unfortunately, a couple plays later, he ends up getting hurt. It's looking like some kind of lower body injury, not really sure the extent of it.
Yeah.
It's not looking like he's going to come back, basically. Bivouac did fall to 0-3 after being blown out in the second half, essentially single-handedly by Perry Jones, it seemed like, who scored, I think, all 14 points in the second half.
Probably might have.
Nick Young and Elijah Stewart got off to a good start. This was Swaggy P's best game, by the way. Enemies picked up their first win, 50-34. Is this where we just admit we were absolutely wrong on Bivouac? By the way, they added a couple new additions. They dropped Mo Spates, and they also dropped Julian Wright. They added Jermaine Taylor, so I was super happy to see JT back in it. They also added Quincy Miller. But that didn't really seem to make too much of an impact, and now they're looking for another replacement, probably for Josh Smith. I guess we just kind of waved the white flag on Bivouac because they're now sitting at 0-3, and it hasn't looked pretty in any week.
Yeah, were we wrong about Bivouac? Absolutely wrong about Bivouac. They're the worst.
We were just wrong. We were dead wrong.
We were dead wrong. They're the worst team in this league. By far. And I don't know what exactly to make of it because they were a very young and promising team. And I still think they individually have very talented players. I like their draft. I like the direction they were going in. I don't know what it is.
I don't get it.
I don't get it either, but they're not working on any facet right now. Will Bynum isn't playing well. Coaching hasn't been good. Role players haven't been doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're getting blown out every week. And we never see blowouts in the Big 3. All games are within, 8 to 2-point wins. You know what I mean? To lose by double digits consistently in the Big 3 is something we've never seen before.
Not even by Ball Hogs, which has consistently been a bad team.
This is unprecedented levels of bad.
Right.
This might be the worst team in Big 3 history.
That's crazy. Just think about how high we were on them from 2019 and on.
I know because they were so promising.
That's
and they
basically
brought back the same roster.
Think about it. They lost Anthony Morrow,
CJ Leslie,
and Deion Glover. And there's somebody else I'm missing in there. Sean Williams.
Yeah.
That's wild. I feel like they made substantial upgrades.
They got in Julian Wright, who was great for power. They brought in Mo Spates, who they left.
His nickname.
They let him play 2 games.
Yep.
And then he's gone. They brought in brought in
Jermaine Taylor, Quincy Miller.
They brought in Jermaine Taylor. They thought they assumed the issue was on offense because you bring in 2 scorers. But I don't know.
The Most Bates one is weird to me because, you don't only bring him in. He's your co-captain. Those are kind of your ride or die guys, the face of your team. And they ultimately just said, hey, this is not working out. I mean, that's tough.
That is tough. But I mean, he did not look in shape. He was not playing at the level of a co-captain, which there are other co-captains in this league who don't play at the level of co-captains, but regardless. But he didn't.
It's not what we expected, for sure.
He was not what we expected.
I don't know if maybe it's just the opportunity wasn't there or the adjustments were a little bit more difficult. We do see a lot of it. Some guys just getting exposed from a 3-on-3 level that we don't see on a 5v5 setting.
They made that change right away though.
They made it quick. Yeah. It's almost like
he's like Most Bates only played 2 games in the Big 3.
Yeah. And as someone we were very ecstatic about joining, it's just nutty to me. The first game, all right, you lost to Triplets, you lose by 12 points, but I mean, 29 last week. That's barely making it to the first half in any game.
Right.
34
and that was a fake 29, by the way. Like they hit a couple threes late. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And 34. Yeah.
34. I don't know. I have no faith in Bivouac.
No, they're done. They're
like, that's tough to write off any team 3 games in. I know it's an 8-game season, but I think
best you can hope for is 5-3, and that is you're going to have to win 5 games in a row.
They got 3-headed monsters next week.
And, listen, is it possible? Sure. But even at 5-3, playoffs aren't guaranteed.
Not in this league.
Not the way that, because there's probably going to be 2 teams that have 2 losses or less.
I mean, just like, I know anything can happen, but realistically, look at the other teams in the league, and just think to yourself: is there any team? What teams do you think Bivouac can beat? Just on a paper,
None.
On paper basis.
I would say enemies.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, yeah, that's what it seems like. And now they just lost Josh Smith. I mean,
maybe like Three's Company.
Maybe
catch Pargo on a bad day.
And then you just stick in. I mean,
this is the worst team in the league by far, and it's just disappointing.
It's
because we had high hopes for them. We thought there was going to be the Will Bynum versus Joe Johnson MVP race. But there hasn't been any race so far with Joe Johnson against anybody. It's not even close.
What's also a little disappointing too is that outside of Triplets, who's far and away the best team, the other 3 expansion teams not doing so hot. No. 2 of them are 0-3. They were all 0-2 coming into this week. I mean, I know it's not the same as like if they're tied to a city, but in any league, when you expand, you want those teams to do well. And Triplets, I think, does make up for the lack of the other 3 teams and how they've been doing this year. But I mean, you got the staples of your league, and they're clearly. It's just tough. I think it's just tough for those expansion teams. It's been tough for all 3 of them in different ways. We'll just we'll see how it goes next week. But it's been tough. So that's essentially how week 3 wrapped up. We did see 2 major injuries, like I said, or I shouldn't say major. 1 major injury and 1 injury that will be TBD in Katino Mobley. Prayers up to both of them, but I guess more specifically Josh Smith, because we hope that he does get better. We hope that it's not season ending, but with your team 0-3 and just from the look of it being non-contact,
season's already over.
Did not look good. Okay.
Might not be a season-ending injury, but your season's over.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, we're going to move away from Bivouac because they seem like a depressing topic at this point. All right, guys, let's get into our week 4 rapid fire predictions. Before we do that, we're going to get into some roster moves that just came out. Yes, we're recording this part on a separate day. Things come up, life happens, but we wanted to make sure we got all this in. There were some roster moves today. We told you at the first half of the show that there were some injuries with Katino Mobley from Power. He's honestly, it's not going to be a hard replacement for them. They're just going to add, they get Dusan Bulut back this week. He just won bronze with the Serbian team in the first 3-on-3 event in the Olympics. So congrats to Serbia and congrats to Dusan Bulut on placing. They're the first ever bronze medalist, but he'll take over for Katino at least this week, and then they'll make some roster changes moving forward, depending on what they need to do. Josh Smith is going to be replaced by Mikkel Gladness, not a name that we're very familiar with. He's going to be playing center for him, so he's a big. Not really sure his skill set too much yet. Haven't looked into it, but we'll make sure that we know up front before the game start. And if not, we'll all learn together. Hey,
it's been a trend that the guys we've never heard of have been pretty darn good this season.
Exactly. I was going to say, and that's what, Ice Cube wants more homegrown talent. Maybe this is his opportunity to be able to showcase that. So they add Mikkel Gladness to Bivouac. This is their third edition in 2 weeks. So we kind of know the hill or the trend that Bivouac is going in right now. It's not been a positive one, but hey, if they can at least get one win this week, who knows what can happen.
Yeah.
And then for Three's company, Ryan Hollins is not going to be playing this week. I'm not sure if that's due to injury or some other priority, but he's going to be replaced this week by Arinze Onaku. I'm not sure how to say his name either, but I know that Dante Green referred to him as AO and Jeff also referred to him as AO. So he's going to be joining Three's company. He's another big. He played at Syracuse, so I think that's how Dante knows him pretty well. And he'll be joining them, and he will be replacing Ryan Hollins. Should be a good addition for him. Heard some good things about him at the combine that he did pretty well. So, if at some point you find out how to really say his name, make sure I don't butcher that too much. That would be appreciated.
Of course.
Moving on from there, those are the kind of the roster moves that are going to be happening for week 4. Don't know if those will be temporary or for the long haul. In Bivouac's case, it could be for the rest of the season. We will have to wait and see, but I'm just glad that a couple of those guys get an opportunity, and I'm really happy to see that we finally get to see the Big 3 debut for Dusan Bulut. Fingers crossed, because I don't want to jinx anything. Knock on wood. Anything that I can do to make sure that there's no spell to try to restrict Dusan from playing this week. All right, let's get into our week 4 predictions for this week. We got some pretty interesting matchups again. Obviously, Triplets is going to be the main game, more than likely, because they have the biggest target on their back. But the first game of the day is looking like it's going to be Ghost Ballers and Ball Hogs, 2-2-1 teams that just suffered their first loss of the season. 2 teams kind of out to prove something. Ghost Ballers has been doing that since day one. And Ball Hogs, they probably don't want to fall to 500 after a good start. Who do you got in this one?
Yeah, I mean, this will probably be the best game of the week, looking like it. This is probably the most competitive matchup. And, I think, it's tough to say. I think Ghost Ball is coming off of a loss. Ball Hogs coming off of a loss as well.
Mm-hmm.
This will be a really good litmus test for both of them, because I think Ghost Ballers are probably it's going to be a good matchup between Mike Taylor and Barbosa. I was going to say Ghost Ballers look like they're probably the deeper team at the moment, but Barbosa has just been unstoppable. So if maybe we can get a little bit of that, classic Mike Taylor defense on Barbosa, that's definitely going to be a fun matchup to watch. But I think I'm going to have to go with Ball Hogs in this one.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick against the grain a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking that Mike's probably going to make it a priority to anchor down. If there's anybody that can maybe match the speed of Barbosa, I'm thinking it could be Mike.
Yeah.
Because he and he is a pretty good on-ball defender. So I was actually just going to pick whoever you weren't going to pick, because I think it's that kind of tight of a contest. So I'm going to go with Ghost Ballers in this one. I think, like you said, it's going to come down to depth. I think if there's going to be anybody that can kind of slow down Barbosa, or at least keep him from scoring at least 20 points, which he's done in the first 3 weeks, just like Joe Johnson, I think it could be Mike Taylor. I think they utilize Chris Johnson a little bit more. And we're still waiting to see kind of Craig Smith get his offense going. I don't think we've seen enough of that yet. So I'm going to say it's going to be this week. I'm going to go with Ghost Ballers. So starting out the predictions on 2 different sides. Let's move on to Killer Threes and Power. Another game where I think 2 teams are trying to prove themselves. We obviously told you that Dusan's going to be joining Power this week. Killer Threes coming off their first win. Do we think that Killer Threes can make it 2 in a row, or does Power make it 2 in a row themselves?
I think Killer Threes can. I think that Power, we talked about in the first half of this episode, Power's missing their best player. I think Dusan's going to come in, and Dusan is used to a very different style of basketball.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Power doesn't really have the luxury of slowly getting Dusan in. They need him this week with Coutinho out, and without any really other major roster moves, it's basically going to be Dusan in place of Coutinho. So, So that probably means, that Royce White is going to get a lot of the load as they do try to wane Dusan in. But, I think Dusan's parade is going to get rained on a little bit by Killer Threes.
Yeah, see, I thought too that the upset could be coming, but there's no way in Dusan's first game that I'm not going with him and his squad. I'm going with Power. I do think it's going to be a tight one, and I would hate to see Killer Threes drop to 1-3. However, that being said, I think while Dusan is going to have to catch up to speed a little bit, I mean, no better way than just facing Olympic competition. You're facing some of the best in the world outside the U.S., at least from a FIBA style of play. I think he's going to, maybe have limited minutes, but I think he's going to make some plays that are going to be big for his team to ultimately come up and win. Like
The
you
only
said,
thing I'll say about that, though,
okay,
this is a matchup. This is a revenge game for Power. This was a playoff matchup last season in the semifinals, if I'm not mistaken,
Yep.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So the way I look at it is this: Killer Threes is basically returning that same team except for Steven Jackson. Power, you don't have Corey Maggette, you don't have Birdman, and you don't have Katino Mobley. So I don't know. I just think Killer Threes seemed to have the winning formula last time that these two teams played. So
Power's a different squad. They didn't have Royce White either or Joe
Yeah.
Alexander, and you're adding Dusan. So I'm just gonna go with Power. I got to go with my guy Dusan. I've been waiting for this day for too long.
I know you really have been.
I think this parade just trucks right through Killer Threes, and it's going to be a good one. So I'm going to go with Power. You got Killer Threes. Let's move on to Triplets and Enemies. You know what? Let me just go ahead and say that I'm not going to go against Triplets again for a third straight week. I keep trying to call the upset. I just want to call it, not because I don't like Triplets, because I think it'd be fun for the league. There's no way I'm going to do that for a third straight week. I'm going with Triplets. If Enemies does it, congrats. But there's no way I'm going to be getting an L for the third straight week on something that should be easy, like something I should have gotten the past 2 weeks. My record, I think, is now on the season. I think it just now went over 500, although you took week 3. You took week 3 as you did with weeks 1 and 2, because we only had one game that was separate, and I thought Trilogy would pull the upset. No way I'm going to let you have another at least easy win. So I'm going to go with Triplets.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick Triplets every week, and then if they just lose once or twice, maybe, then I'll just live with it. But I'm picking Triplets every week.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Good luck, Enemies, but it's hard for us not to pick Triplets. Three's Company's Tri-State is going to be game 4. Tri-State is now 2-1 over 500. Three's Company coming off a tough loss to Three-Headed Monsters, where they had to lead 46-40 before blowing it late against them. Who do you got in that one? Do you think Tri-State can make it 3 in a row and go to 3-1? I mean, this is a team that you weren't too high on coming into the season, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I think really the way Jason Richardson has been playing, it's really been a big boost. But I still think Three's Company might be a deeper team, but losing Ryan Hollins, that's tough. There is a little bit of a wild card coming in this week. So I don't know. This is also a pretty close game. Two teams I think I hold in pretty similar regards, at least in my own mind. So I think these are two teams that will probably end up finishing around 500. So I'm going to go Three's Company.
Oh, I'm also going to go with Three's Company. I think as much as I have like Tri-State and what they're doing and getting off to a good start, I think this is a game where Three's Company knows they need to win this one. They are adding a different piece at the big man position, but I think he's going to fill in nicely. I think he's at least from our draft stream that he was pretty well respected. And I think he did some good things at the combine. So I think he'll fit in nicely. And I think Pargo and Chalmers are going to have some good games because Michael Cooper is going to rely on them heavy. He knows he needs this one. Yeah. I think both teams go to 2-2. So I also got Three's Company in this one. Aliens and Trilogy are the next game. Aliens is still 0-3. Do they get their first win against Trilogy?
No. No, listen, Trilogy's just a better team. I mean, if Aliens were to win this one, it would be a pretty huge shock, I would say, a pretty big upset. Not saying it's not impossible. Anything could happen, but I think this is a team that Trilogy right now, you're trying to keep pace with really Power. Mm-hmm. I think the fight right now is for that number 2 seed. So, I picked Power to lose this week, but you know how that is. I mean? I'm much less confident in that pick as I am in this one, where I think Trilogy, you're just trying to keep pace with them right now. So I think this is a game that you have to win for them. Every game's going to be a must win just because for seeding purposes. And I don't think the playoff spot is guaranteed for anybody besides triplets at this point in the season. So no, I'm going to say this is a win for Trilogy.
Yeah, I got Trilogy as well. It's hard to think that they're going to be as inefficient as they were last game. I don't think Jared Jack's going to sit the first half. I think he'll be a little bit more cautious when it comes to the foul trouble. Hopefully it won't get some bad calls and everything. And I think we see Briscoe take it to the basket more. I mean, look, this guy seems just about unguardable in the first 2 weeks, and he's settled for a lot more jump shots. I don't think he's going to make that same mistake again. He's also not going to have the load of guarding Joe Johnson on the defensive end and then try to go back to work on the offensive end. I got Trilogy moving to 3-1, and unfortunately for Aliens, I think while this might be their last hurrah, if they lose this one, they're probably out of it at 0-4. But again, hopefully we're wrong and we can shake things up. Okay, the last game of the day is going to be Bivouac and 3-Headed Monsters. I think I know which way you're leaning, but I'll let you take the floor and say it for yourself.
I mean, I've been really trying to talk myself into Bivouac, if I'm being honest with you. Just because, I just don't want to see their season end with 4 straight losses. After really hyping them up for 2 years.
It wouldn't end that way. It would just start that way.
It would both. But, I think the more and more that I try to talk myself into Bivouac and I say, how good of a game Bivouac is capable of, I just feel like, I also then have to say how bad 3-Headed Monsters can be. And I just feel like I would be doing a disservice and I'd be severely underestimating 3-Headed Monsters if I did that. I just don't see this happening, especially losing Josh Smith, unless Mikal Gladness comes in and he's just plays absolutely out of his mind and drops a 2020 game or something like that.
Whoa.
I mean, who knows? There's a little bit of a wild card there as well, but I just, this is a team. I mean, we said it in the first half of the episode. This might be the worst team in Big 3 history. At least they're playing like it. And then you just lost your second best player. So I'm going to have to do 3-Headed Monsters. As boring as that is, I can't pick against them.
Hey, well, welcome to the league, Mikal Gladness. Your first matchups this week are going to be Reggie Evans and Mamadou Ndiaye to start your Big 3 career. Hey, look, we've talked about the woes of Bivouac, and unfortunately, they just haven't been good. A team that we were just completely wrong on, it seems like. They haven't even scored 40 points. They haven't scored 35 points yet. Or I'm sorry, they have. They scored week 1. So they haven't scored 40 points yet this season, unfortunately. And, on the flip side, I think Kevin Murphy's been a top 5 player this year in this Big 3 season. So I'm going to have to go with 3-Headed Monsters as well, as boring as that is. As much as I don't want to wave the white flag on Bivouac, they've made the most roster changes already. They're losing their captain probably for the rest of the year, and it's just been a tough road this season. So 3-Headed Monsters as well. Okay, guys, we went in pretty different directions for the most part, so it won't be determined on one game on our records. Maybe I can get one on you this week. You're 3-0 against me just in terms of records when it comes to predictions. You're like Joe Johnson right now with the 3.
Yes, sir.
So fingers crossed that we can get one done. We appreciate everyone who's listening. Hopefully we'll have a player interview for you coming up within the next couple of weeks, but you obviously got to remember too, the players are busy and they're traveling, and we've made some travel changes to the itinerary. So hopefully we can get one on, but we do appreciate everyone who's tuned in. Make sure you guys are following on whatever platform that you listen to your podcast on, Apple, Spotify, etc. Please, subscribe, turn on that notification bell, leave comments on YouTube, and we appreciate you guys listening on Dash Radio and the Nothing But Net channel. We'll be back next week with you guys for another recap. Appreciate you guys as always, and we'll see you guys next week.